Hello, I am Purple Rain, coach of the Baltimore Buzzwolves in the VBL-S, a Pokemon Draft League, a VGC Draft League to be specific, and I am against the Mallorca Mawiles, I believe, although I'm not 100% sure of the pronunciation. But anyways, this is the matchup that I have going into the week. I think that this is by far some notable things. I have the fastest Pokemon with Fluttermane, but my opponent has quite a few Pokemon that outspeed in Salazzle and Palafin and Staraptor that outspeed the majority of my Pokemon and pose good threats. Then they also have a more robust Trick Room mode than I do, with options like Dragalogy, Hatterene, etc. So my opponent has another pretty flexible, a team that's pretty flexible on speed. And this is their type chart. What I think is most interesting about this is I think this is pretty clearly by far the worst Fluttermane matchup I've had. Because if you look at Fluttermane's stabs, Fairy and Ghost, my opponent only has one Fairy weakness. Granted, it's an important one, but it's a Pokemon in Ting-Lu that also just does well into special attackers. And then Ghost, only one weakness to Ghost, and that's Hatterene. But there's tons of immunities on the team, and as well as although Ditto's not a real immunity, there's a couple immunities on the team, and then there's also a resistance in Ting-Lu. So yeah, Fluttermane's not the best this week, and overall my opponent has a really good type chart, I would say. The most obvious weakness, though, is definitely electric. My opponent is super weak to electric types. Now they have Ting-Lu to kind of fight against that, it being a really good ground type. But still, there's only so much it can do. And so, unfortunately for me, I don't have any strong electric types, because since I got rid of Pikachu, I have no threats that are electric type. So it's going to be important to go into this match to see how I can sort of like manufacture some electric types to do well into my opponent's team. So these are the Pokemon that I think always show up for my opponent's team. Palafin, because it's just a great Pokemon, and I kind of struggle into water types. Ting-Lu it's a great Pokemon, right? It went top 5. I think it went third. I think it went before me. It's a great Pokemon. Really strong physical attacker, but also incredibly bulky. Really good against special attackers. My team is heavy on special attackers. I would expect it to be a Ting-Lu Assault Vest set, but who knows? And then Corviknight. Corviknight did not jump off the page at me when I was looking at the matchups and stuff as something that I would really need to worry about. But in a couple of mocks I did with Heaven, thank you, Heaven, for being so helpful, I found that just a setup Corviknight set I didn't have a ton of good answers to, specifically with bulk up, because I just don't have I just didn't have a good answer to what it was doing. Or I had some, but it wasn't super great. So I think a Corviknight should always come, although it's because it doesn't jump off the page, maybe it doesn't. But like I said, Palafin, great water type. I kind of struggle into water types, and Ting-Lu is just a great Pokemon overall, and really good into my team, which is pretty heavy on special attackers. Now, these are the other Pokemon that I think are really worth considering for my opponent's team. Trick Room and Redirection from the Toad School. Technically, it also gets Spore, although I would be surprised if it actually ends up getting a Spore off. I just have lots of things that can deal with Toad School well. So yeah, it could get a Spore off, but I'm more worried about the fact that it is both Trick Room and Redirection. Staraptor is interesting too, because it gets Intimidate and Final Gambit. It's fast Pokemon. It could be Scarfed Final Gambit. Or it could just be scarfed and have a bunch of attacking moves and do good damage, or it could just be like a choice band, or it could be a variety of things, or it could be a set that's maybe like assault vest and trying to switch in and out and intimidate cycle. Although I think that's pretty unlikely given how especially offensive my team is, but it's certainly possible. Then there is the Trick Room Abusers, and that would be Hatterene and Dragalge. So these Pokemon scare me a bit because Dragalge is really good, a really good answer into Azumarill, like straight up, because Poison is just really good into Azumarill, and it's a Dragon type that isn't weak against Fairy, and in fact has super effective moves against Fairy, like I said with Poison. And then there's Hatterene, which is a really good answer into my Hydreigon. And it's also a slow mon, and so I would expect to see some sort of Trick Room mode coming, given these are the mon that I think are best into me. And these are some of the mons I'm just not really respecting at all. Like I because I respect Dragalge, I'm going to have some answers into the poison types here. But that's more incidental. And Salazzle was their third pick, and I think it was a good pick. I just don't think that it does super well into me. I don't think my team is super weak to fire. And its speed tier is nice, but I think Fake Out is not super good into my team just because I have the option of Psychic Terrain, which makes Salazzle a bit of a tougher sell. Although it does protect them from like priority Aqua Jets and stuff like that. And then, I mean, I think it goes without saying that Lechonk is not a real Pokemon. And Ditto's interesting. I have no idea how they'd use Ditto. I still don't really understand Ditto and VGC, like as a concept, what it's supposed to do, when it's good. Maybe I'll learn today. But I think Ditto is just not really a big threat to me. I can just, like, if it's Scarf type Protect or whatever. Yeah, anyways, I'm just not scared of Ditto, and I'm not scared of any of these Pokemon, really. Okay, so this is the team I've built to counter my opponents. It looks pretty similar to last week's team, and it is pretty similar to last week's team in some ways, but it's pretty different as well. So to start, Fluttermane is the first Pokemon, as it is every week, because despite it being a bad week for Fluttermane, it is still a great Pokemon, and I still think it is probably one of the best Pokemon in the matchup. I think Fluttermane is insane, and the more I play in this draft league, the more I think it's crazy, and I think it is probably the best Pokemon in draft. I'm not sure about it, obviously. I'm still very new, but I fail to see a way how it's not just fantastic. Anyways, in this specific week, it outspeeds everything. This is going to be every week, I think. Fluttermane's almost always going to outspeed everything. And I don't need to be a speed boosting nature to do it. I just need to get to 186 because Salazzle's max speed is 185. Shadow Ball and Moonblast. So I have Shadow Ball and Moonblast, but like I mentioned before, the stab moves aren't super great on Fluttermane this week since my opponent has really good resistances or immunities into both of its stabs. But I found I needed Shadow Ball just as a good general coverage move because there weren't a ton of immunities, and especially of the Pokemon I expect to be in the game, there just aren't a ton of immunities that I would expect. And Moonblast, because Fluttermane needs a move that can hit Tinglu. And for a while it was Energy Ball, but Energy Ball just doesn't make sense given my other coverage move that I have, and my other coverage move is just better given the Pokemon I expect to come. And so I just said, well, it might as well be Moonblast then, because Moonblast is going to do more damage than Energy Ball will. And it's a good hit into anything that takes it neutrally. But that's also part of the reason it's not Dazzling Gleam and it's Moonblast, is it's really for specific targets. And then I have Thunderbolt and Terra Electric, because there are the birds, Corviknight and Staraptor. I expect one or the other or both to show up. And then Terra Electric is for like Brave Birds or something if they're trying to attack the Fluttermane, or just for that little bit of extra damage on a Palafin or something. there are so many things that can OHKO Flutter Mane. So many different things. Iron Heads, heavy slams this week. Just really so many things that can OHKO it. So I decided to put a focus sash on it. Just seems like it makes the most sense. For a while it was booster energy, but nothing ended up needing the sash, and the sash just seems better on Flutter. So yeah, I decided to go with focus sash. The game plan is for it to essentially be a sweeper. Comes out. Hopefully, Psychic Terrain will be up when it comes out, and it will force a lot of attacks into it because it's just such a threat. And so it'll just throw out protects and make my opponent sad. Especially once my opponent knows it's Focus Sash, I think there's a good chance it'll get doubled up, and then protects are even better. Yeah, so that's basically the idea with Flutter Mane. It just has strong hits into a lot of things, even if there are a bunch of immunities on the team or resistances to specific moves. Flutter Mane's still great. Now Hydreigon. This is interesting. Hydreigon's also a set that changed quite a bit from my initial creation of it. It is now it's Flash Cannon and Terra Steel for Hatterene. I just want a good way of dealing with Hatterene. This is it. Terra Poison is normally the Terra I like most on Hydreigon, but then it's just weak to Hatterene Psychic, so it's not. It gives it a turn, but it's not doing much more than that. But since I have to Terra Steel, or since I've decided to Terra Steel, that makes Choppleberry much better because I need something to protect me against fighting type attacks, and body presses can come out this week. Close combats can come out. Anyway, there's a couple of fighting type moves I need to be worried about, so it makes sense for Hydreigon to carry a Chopple. Draco and Dark Pulse are strong stabs. Neither mover is particularly good this week, but neither mover is particularly bad. They're just strong stabs to have. And it outspeeds, it's EV to outspeed max speed Corviknight, then just full special attack, and the rest can go in bulk. Yeah, I'm not really. My opponent has some weird speed tiering. Actually, I do want to go over this. My opponent has some weird speed tiering that made me confused about how to EV. Because I don't think Corviknight's going to be max speed, but I want to have insurance in case it does. Because anything under base 100 speed on my team has to worry about both Palafin and Staraptor. And that's Hydreigon, that's Indeedee, that's Lumineon, etc. It's like all of my Pokemon except for Flutter Mane and Tauros. And if my Pokemon's based on 100 speed, then I have to commit to max speed if I want to guarantee a speed tie, which I'm not really looking to do most of the time. So because of that, I don't have any Pokemon to worry about for another, because I can't really outspeed, or with Hydreigon I just can't outspeed Palafin and Staraptor consistently. So then I was thinking about what should I try to outspeed, and the only real answer is Corviknight, because I always outspeed Tinglu, and Toadschool's speed doesn't matter. So I ended up going bulkier than I expected to go, just because the speed EVs ended up being useless for my team most of the time. So yeah, that's why I made a lot of the speed decisions I did. You'll see a lot of 131 speeds on my team, or at least a couple. And yeah, the reasoning is always just, it outspeeds max speed Corviknight. And there's no other real speed benchmarks that I need to try to hit. Anyways, going back. Yeah, that's my Hydreigon set. So Hydreigon is very similar to Flutter Mane in its job, except it has the specific job of switching into Palafin, especially if I think like a Jet Punch is coming out, or even a Wave Crash, because Hydreigon doesn't take too much damage from even max attack Choice Band Wave Crash, and then if my opponent has close combat, it's clicking it, and if it doesn't, then whatever, it's clicking into Hydreigon, and if it does, then Hydreigon still gets a turn, and if it doesn't have close combat, then it still gets a turn because nothing else is going to KO it after a Wave Crash or Jet Punch. So that's basically the idea with Hydreigon. It's a good switch into Palafin, as in it can like do something if need be, and it has really strong stab hits, and it is a way to deal with Hatterene if the need arises for it too. Then I have a Azumarill. One of the things you'll notice is it's Terra Ground, Terra Blast to help deal with poison types. And the other thing you'll notice is no fairy stab moves. And this is because going back to the type chart I brought up earlier, the only Pokemon that's weak to fairy is Tinglu, which is also weak to water. Now there's a possibility Tinglu is like Terra Grass or something, and if it is, then like... But if it is, then the liquidation is going to not be useful anymore. But like, who cares? Because then I have Ice Spinner to deal with it. Anyways, so I basically never need to play rough. Play rough is just a bad move to have on Azumarill this week. So in place of that, I have liquidation. Like I said, is my strong stab. Aqua Jet is always good priority to have. Ice Spinner, so in the case I need to get rid of my Psychic Terrain, Ice Spinner is good to have. There's also the case of a Terra Grass, like I've mentioned, or for a Toadschool, if it ends up being Eviolite, Ice Spinner is a really good move to have because it will just OHKO. And then AV really helps for survivability. And then I have Terra Ground, Terra Blast. For all the poison types, but really mostly for Dragalogy. It'll give me a resist to poison, and then it will be a super effective hit. The game plan is to punish slow plays by my opponent by like breaking Tinglu, which I don't think will have Protect because I think it'll be AV. So if the other thing protects, then Azumarill will be able to do tons of damage to Tinglu. I don't think it ever leads, but maybe. And it's best when there's no Psychic Terrain because it wants to Aqua Jet sometimes. And it's going to be bulky like it is every week, but this week a little bit more because it has AV. Yeah, that's my Azumarill plan. As I've said every week, it's a bruiser. It functions as a bruiser. That's what it's going to do. Now I have Tauros. Tauros is interesting. It's so interesting. I went back and forth on whether I wanted to Intimidate, and I decided finally yes. Because the problem is it's great and horrible in different ways. It's great in that because my opponent has Tinglu, they rely on physical threats. However, my opponent also has Corviknight. Corviknight has Mirror Armor. Mirror Armor bounces the Intimidate back onto Tauros. So if my opponent has Corviknight out, then the Intimidate's really bad. Because it just makes Tauros -1 attack. Yeah, so like that's a problem. But maybe my opponent doesn't even bring Corviknight, and if my opponent doesn't bring Corviknight, then Intimidate goes wild on my opponent's team. It's great. It's perfect. And if they do bring Corviknight, maybe they don't bring it to the match, or I just need to position Tauros really well. Or maybe I don't bring Tauros. Either way. Terra Electric Wild Charge, because my opponent has Birds and Palafin. Just good to have. Iron Head is for Hatterene. CC is for Tinglu. And then Citrus just gives Tauros a little bit more survivability. Weren't any great items I saw for calcs. I don't think Expert Belt really helped that much, although I don't know if I did every calc for it. I didn't have a ton of time. But I couldn't find anything in the time I did have, and so I decided to go with Citrus Berry. The game plan is basically for this Pokemon to Intimidate, Cycle, threaten KOs because it has those really strong hits with max attack Tauros. Oh, and like I said before, it has 131 speed. It is outspeeding max speed Corviknight. And maybe it can surprise Terra to finish off a bird or survive something, survive a brave bird or something. Yeah. Now, next Pokemon is Indeedee. I wanted some more threats on my team, and Indeedee doesn't have a ton of good support moves. I could have went with like Imprison Trick Room or something. There were different ideas, but I thought having a normal move and a psychic move would be good this week. And Encore is always good. Throat Spray plus Terra Normal and Hyper Voice makes for a good combination. There's not a ton of things on my opponent's team that love taking that, although Tinglu obviously helps things take that. Psyshock is good because... Oh, Psyshock's not good because of Tinglu. It's supposed to be Psychic. This was a mistake of mine. I think I'm going to replace it with Psychic. I for some reason thought Tinglu boosted special defense, and then I remembered that all it does is lower special attack. So it's going to end up being a psychic. And then Encore is there because it's broken, and it'll outspeed max speed Corviknight. So if it is like that bulk upset or something, or if it is a Tailwind and I've matched the Tailwind, then I can just Encore it into whatever move, and it's going to be bad for the Corviknight. Or whatever Pokemon. There are a bunch of Encores, a bunch of Pokemon that I can Encore. So I'm not really worried about it having a lack of targets. Encore is a broken move. It's probably one of the best moves. I think I said earlier that I think Fake Out is the best move. My opinions have changed. It's Encore isn't the best. It's probably Protect, but Encore is really, really good. One of the best moves in the game. It's growing on me a lot. And so the game plan is it always leads with Drifblim, unless the game one goes horribly or something, and the lead especially is like really shown to be bad. Encore pushes my opponents to play offensively, and my opponent's team is a pretty defensive team, so I think that's just a good thing to do, force my opponent to play on their back foot. And Hyper Voice Throat Spray allows it to be a real threat for special attacks. Then I have Drifblim. Drifblim, similar to last week, outspeeds everything, although this time it needs no speed EVs to do that. Acrobatics is huge damage because, like I said, I needed no speed EVs, and I'm not too worried about the special attacks that Drifblim will take because of Psychic Seed, so I really wanted just to pour in some more damage. And so Acrobatics is now going to hit kind of like a truck. Will-O-Wisp is really good for physical attackers, and I don't respect my opponent's special attackers, so Will-O-Wisp I thought was essential. And then I have Tailwind and Trick Room for speed control. So, unfortunately, I couldn't fit Imprison on this set. I think it's worse this week for a variety of reasons. In part because, like I said, I think Will-O-Wisp is just shot up in value this week. It's really good. I want that attacking move, and otherwise I have nothing really to do with the EVs. And also my opponent gets Whirlwind on something like Tinglu. So it might not even be able to stay in with Imprison. So yeah, that's basically the thought process on why I don't have Imprison this week. Yeah, and there's no good defensive Terra. I looked for defensive Terras on Drifblim. I don't think anything worked. Like, I was thinking about ground for a while to resist the rock type moves of Tinglu potentially, but I'm just hoping it really doesn't bring a rock type move. It's basically my thought. And if it does, then it'll be Will-O-Wisp, so Drifblim will take less damage. So yeah, game plan: lead with Indeedee, chunk with Acrobatics, Will-O-Wisp physical threats, and then just always control the speed, control the game. Drifblim is going to let me be in control the whole time, unless there's a Scarfed Pokemon. That is the one thing about my team that I have not mentioned up until this point, because I have just said that all I need to worry about is the max speed on Salazzle. My team is pretty weak to a surprise Scarfed Mon, although I don't even know what would be Scarfed. I don't think my opponent has any good Mons to Scarf, except maybe Corviknight, but if it's a Scarf Corviknight, like, all I need to do is protect a turn and then figure out what it's doing, and it's just not that scary. So yeah, this is my team. I feel pretty good going into the game. I'm gonna do some last minute prep, fix the thing with Indeedee, and I will jump back whenever the game's about to start. Okay, so this is the matchup. It is just what I expected. Indeedee Drifblim with the birds. Corviknight makes me skeptical of Tauros. Flutter's good. I'm worried about having an answer for Trick Room if they do get Trick Room up, so I do want Azumarill then, so it's going to be Flutter Azumarill, I think. Yeah, Flutter is just good into so much. With Thunderbolt, that's what it's going to be, I think. Yeah, it's just going to be a Azumarill. And then I have Willow for the last 4 Mons if they come. Okay, so I now do need to be worried about Staraptor being scarfed. But I think I can like, if it does Final Gambit and DD, if Final Gambit's in DD, that's kind of fine, is my take. So I want a Hyper Voice. And I think that Palafin probably just switches out here. But it could the Staraptor could also be Tailwind. I need to consider that. If it is Tailwind, though, I don't know if I really care. I think I might want to match it, but I can also offset it by a turn. That's really fine with me. I think burning Staraptor is almost as good. So I think I am just going to burn Staraptor. If it's Final Gambit, the burn goes on to whatever the other Pokemon is. That's fine with me. Regalogy coming out. Brave Bird, that does just KO it, but that means it is Scarfed. And now burned. Dragalogy is a Pokemon I need to be worried about. I think I'm fine Terra Ground, but Terra Ground Azumarill is really bad for the obvious reason of Palafin. I need to have Palafin answers. I think Terra Electric's not bad for Flutter to survive. Terra Electric, and then Shadow Ball into Dragalogy, or Moonblast into Dragalogy. I can kind of leave this Staraptor as is. It's not going to be doing a ton with, well, burned. And Moonblasting Dragalogy. And then Acrobaticsing Dragalogy as well. Yeah, I can just double up into it, and I think that's fine. Oh, Brave Bird into that, doesn't really matter. Acrobatic, the crit's huge. But the Terra Ghost doesn't matter at all. I think that's really big for me. Psychic Terrain is still up. Corviknight's interesting. Thunderbolt, and then Tailwind. So it's always faster. I can also Will-O-Wisp, but it probably protects, to be honest. So there's a case to Acrobatic Staraptor. Acrobaticsing Staraptor is actually really good. Because it can't protect. It could also switch into Palafin. Yeah, I'm just going to Acrobatic Staraptor, I think. But then I can't match Tailwind if it Tailwinds. So I need to Thunderbolt, Corviknight, and Tailwind. Okay, well, it's down. But now I just Thunderbolt Corviknight, Liquidation Staraptor. So this way, Corviknight goes down if it doesn't protect. Staraptor goes down. Always. And Psychic Terrain is still up. Okay. Azumarill takes whatever. Psychic Terrain is still up. I still have Tailwind. This could be a Protect. T-Bolt, Liquidation. I expect a Protect here. Okay, but now I protect Flutter Mane, T-Bolt, or protect Flutter Mane and Liquidation Palafin. I expect it to hit, yeah. I'm hoping to, basically my goal is to avoid having to reveal Focus Sash right now, because I think I always win this. Thunderbolt, Aqua Jet. No, I want to leave open the option that I'm... Yeah, okay, so they don't know that my Flutter Mane is Sash. That's really good. And that's a good game 1. I'm not going to think too hard about it. I won game 1. because I need to think about game 2 now. Okay. Indeedee Drifblim is good. It was good last game. Staraptor wasn't really a problem once it was burned because it just didn't do enough damage. Fluttermane in the back was correct. It swept through the team, right? Like, I'm trying to think. It was a big part of KOing Dragalge. It didn't get the KO, though. KO'd Corviknight and Palafin. I think I want to keep the same Mons. Corviknight did absolutely nothing there, though, and so I do think there is a chance that they go that they don't bring Corviknight. And if they don't, then Tauros kind of runs through the team. So I'm really inclined to bring Tauros. But I like the liquidation was important. Did Tinglu even come last game? It did not. I want the Azumarill in case Tinglu shows up. Like, I guess Tauros is also good into Tinglu. Both the birds came, though. And that would mean I have to Terra Electric either Fluttermane or Tauros. That's not great. I want to keep it the same. Yeah, I'm keeping it the same. Okay. This is fine. It's Scarfed. Huh. So I think that what I expect them to do is Brave Bird my Drifblim, but I don't think that should KO. Because Brave Bird on Drifblim did how much? 39.6. That doesn't KO because it's doubled. But maybe the double from Hatterene helps. But Hatterene I expect to Trick Room. Although maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just Hyper Voice. Is it Hyper Voice Will-O-Wisp again? Like, I could try to reverse Trick Room. That seems like a really fancy play, though. Maybe it's just Protect Willow. Although I expect the adaptation to be to try to take out Drifblim. Or maybe it's just now that their partner gets to do something good. I'm going to Protect Willow. Okay, huge. Willow's really nice again, and Trick Room. Okay, so now I don't feel threatened by anything here. So I can Hyper Voice Trick Room. Just reverse it, get myself back into a good position. Dazzling Gleam doesn't do much of anything. Hyper Voice gives the boost. Trick Room back. Now I can Encore Hatterene and Will-O-Wisp the Tinglu. Hatterene will then be forced into Dazzling Gleam. It can't Trick Room again. That's good. Yeah, I like that. Oh my god, it has Magic Bounce. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, that's dumb. That's bad of me. I should remember. Yeah, that was just stupid, right? I think I can just bring in Azumarill here, though. And Acrobatics Hatterene. There's nothing that's really threatening anything. Snarl's fine. It does very little damage either. Trick Room is also fine with me. Because now I'm either reversing Trick Room or doing tons of damage to Hatterene. Life Dew is really interesting, by the way. Ruination's cool too. Citrus. I just Liquidation. Acrobatics Tinglu. Because Liquidation KOs. So in case it's like a double or something. How much is Liquidate? Yeah, 57%. So yeah, it protects. It's pretty expected. Well, Acrobatics did nothing to Tinglu. That's fine. I still just liquidation, and then acrobatics Tinglu. Something has to come in and take liquidation. I guess Palafin's not in the back, and if it is, it's a Palafin in the back. It's still in its mini form. Protect failed, so acrobatics on the Tinglu, liquidation on the Hatterene. Heavy slam does nothing. Staraptor's fine. So Snarl, Ruination, Heavy Slam. I don't know what else it has. All I know that Staraptor has is Brave Bird. I think I want to watch out because it's scarfed, so it probably has Final Gambit. It can't Final Gambit. I guess it can't Final Gambit Driftbloom though. But it can try to KO Azumarill. So I think Acrobatics 25 plus 8. I think it's possible this KOs Tinglu before burn. Yeah, that should KO Tinglu before burn. I'm going to bring out Indeedee to reset Psychic Terrain, so Flutter Mane in the back doesn't have to worry about, like, Jet Punch or anything. And it's Dragalge. That's a really good position for me. I can just Psychic it, and I can Acrobatics. I think it probably protects, and Staraptor just Brave Birds again. So I protect Acrobatic Staraptor, I think. Okay, yep, Acrobat. That's because that would have KO'd. Oh, it does just have Shadow Ball. Okay. I just Hyper Voice, or I Psychic this. Terra Electric. Moonblast. Because it does. I just double up the Dragalge. Yeah, protects. So now I protect. Staraptor goes down. It's Life Orb, which is interesting. It just depends on if they have a way to deal with Terra Electric Flutter Mane. So, by the way, one of the things I was considering was Choice Band Azumarill would have been much better into this team. Turns out, I never really needed the ability to switch up moves, and the extra damage would have been nice throughout the game. It just turns out that Assault Vest didn't do much good because I faced so many physical attackers. I knew that going in, but I still decided that the special attackers were scary enough that Assault Vest was worth bringing. It just wasn't. I think really I get caught up in the I have to only pick one move over and over, and that scares me, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, I think that's the big concern. And I protect here because I have Focus Sash. They don't know I have Focus Sash though. Which means I can only get hit once this turn. Staraptor dies unless Dragalge gets life due, although I am almost sure it does not. Yeah, Brave Bird makes sense. Draco Meteor makes sense. I just Moonblast because it does neutral damage. The special attack drop doesn't matter. They don't know that. Psychic Terrain has it only has one turn, so if they have like if I don't know if they are gonna. Yeah, okay. Because the game ended, I can tell them. Yeah, that was GG. Well played. Cool. Really good 2-0. Really good 2-0 this week. I'm proud of how I did. I'm gonna look over the replays and probably just like talk with my opponent a little bit, see how they felt things went. But yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back in 1 second. Okay. I have finished my reflection on the games, and to be honest, I don't see anywhere where I played like poorly. Um, I mean, game one, obviously, it's a mistake to let Ndidi die here. Like, I called the Palafin switching out. It's pretty obvious. That's why I didn't burn it. But there's no reason to go for a hyper voice there. I mean, there is in that if Palafin doesn't switch out, it's nice damage or whatever. Or if Palafin protects, then I can it sets me up for an encore or something. But Star After I know is threatening. Scarf, Final Gambit, Scarf Braveword. And there's just no reason to let it die there. Protect is probably better always. The Tailwind on this play is also kind of iffy. I actually still think it's correct, because I think if Corviknight is Tailwind, then if I let them get Tailwind up and I don't have a way to match it, because I wouldn't, because it would be taken out the next turn by Staraptor, that I'm kind of doomed. So I actually just think that's correct, even though it was the wrong play in this specific situation, because it means Drifblim goes down for nothing pretty much. And then the rest of game one, I just think I played really well. Game two, there's also nothing super interesting. I think I had a good handle over protects and over reads, and knowing that I could always reverse Trick Room with Drifblim. This protect was good here on turn one, although I think that if I were them, I would probably just have attacked the Drifblim, because they made the same play, and I now know that it KOs all the time, and so I don't see why I wouldn't protect. I guess their thought process was probably, as long as they get Trick Room up, it doesn't matter, and Nddidi's potentially the only way that they can stop getting that I can stop getting Trick Room up. But that's not true, because I have reversing of Trick Room. There was one thing that was really bad. I think it's this turn where I tried to encore. Yeah, this is just something that I need to get better at. I need to get better at like noticing when or not noticing at prep. In the prep stage, I need to get better at just like reading abilities and drilling what they do into my head, because I just forgot Hatterene got Magic Bounce, and I forgot what Magic Bounce like did. So that was just like part of my prep that needs improvement, is just always look at abilities of Pokemon, especially if I'm not super used to playing against them, and understand what they do that will hurt me, and how I need to play around it. Like, I can't Encore Hatterene, for instance. But then the rest of the game, I think I played pretty well. Life Dew's cool. Snarl doesn't matter because Drifblim's a physical attacker, and Ndidi actually wasn't doing anything with its attacks anyways, because Hatterene has Life Dew. It's really... So, Ndidi this game, what I should have... Another thing I think I need to learn is, Ndidi is fine if it's just a Psychic Terrain setter, if that setting that Psychic Terrain is the difference between me winning and losing, which it totally kind of... Like, it is in this matchup, because if Palafin can just Jet Punch Flutter, like, it's over. Like, that's such a good ability. So the ability to just constantly have Psychic Terrain up is really important. So maybe it should not have been an offensive set this week. It should have just been pure defense. Like, find way, like, give it Citrus or Leftovers or something. Like, some recovery, make its moves, like, protect. I don't know if it gets sub, but if it does, give it sub. Just, like, make it full survival mode, and then switch it out more aggressively, just so it stays strong, and maybe like Azu dies. But either way, given that that's not what I did in prep, I think I played around it pretty well, switching it out, getting Azu in, let me reset Psychic Terrain later. They have no good way of dealing with Azu, as is obvious by oh, by the way, if that's banded, Hatterene just dies there, I think. So that's another thing that I was talking about earlier. Azu should have been banded for this matchup, and I got scared, and so I didn't give it banned when I knew it should have been, because I knew the special attackers weren't particularly strong. Especially because Hatterene didn't end up even being a special attacker, really. It just has D-Gleam, which I guess it is probably for Hydreigon, which never showed up. But yeah, I like the team. I think Willow was a great bring on my part. That was really smart prep from me, dropping the Imprison for Willow. Yeah, overall I'm really happy with with how game 2 went. That acrobatics was essential into the right target, because acrobatics wasn't gonna. It didn't matter what I did to Dragalge. I need to chip Staraptor, so that the Brave Bird plus two turns of burn would kill it. Yeah, this was really well played by me. I think overall, and I think the prep was really good. Thank you to everybody who helped me prep, being Kodamrin and Heaven this week, both super helpful. Yeah, and so this was my team, and this was my week 4. I'm now 3-1. I'm pretty confident about my at least ability to make playoffs. I think I should do it, and that was my goal coming into the season. I just wanted to make playoffs, prove to myself that I am good enough to do it, and my prep and play are good, and that I and that the draft league is something that I can pursue and have a lot of fun with. And I think I know I'm having fun, and I think I'm doing pretty well. So yeah, thank you for watching. This was a good week, a good test. I'm happy with how everything's going, how the league's going. Yeah, thank you for watching.